like nutrition's a big thing in our house, and we do a lot of cooking for our kids. And one night I hear this like scratching on the wall. My kid was eating the paint off the wall, and like you didn't eat my dinner I cooked, but you eat paint chips? Yeah, they're tastier. I'm like, I could get upset at you. Like all the work staying away from sugar and processed food and sodas, and he's eating paint. And we're like, I could yell at you, but this is just absurd.
What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. of Dad Central and the Dad Central Show, and in his baby blue.
Yeah, baby blue. It's not the Charger baby blue, but yeah, Drew Solon of Dad Central and the Dad Central Show. How are you today, Ed?
Outstanding. What's going on in your world?
Oh man, what isn't? So house sold. We told the kids we're moving. Summer's here. Jordan's playing select baseball. He's traveling now. My daughters are all into this horseback riding, and they want to do it more and more. Summer camps, school's ending. What isn't going on? There's a lot more I could throw on there, but that's just a little bit.
That's a little bit going on.
Yeah.
Wow. So it looks like it's going to be a very full summer for you.
Yes, it will be an exciting, fun, good summer, but it's going to take some planning. And dedicating my time properly to all the different things that are happening. But yeah, it will.
Absolutely. Well, you know what?
What's going on in your world?
Well, when we're recording this, it's the first full day of summer. And I guess summer officially starts calendar-wise. But on the other hand, I know people are going to push it back. The days start getting shorter after today. Yeah. So we got to make sure we fill every box of the calendar for the summer. And then on the reflection piece, this past Sunday was Father's Day, and I didn't see a lot of celebration about Father's Day compared to years in the past. And I'm doing some reflection to see why I didn't see as much I saw some, of course, go online celebration of fathers, but actual events for fathers, I didn't see that many. So this is why one of the reasons why we do what we do, to amplify fathers, dads, and male caregivers. So I've been doing some reflection over the last few days about that and saying, how can we amplify awareness, intent, and legacy of fatherhood? So deep reflection, but you asked me, so I usually give you some deep thoughts.
It's interesting you say that. I had a similar experience on Father's Day, ironically enough, at my church. And I had a conversation with Kristen about it afterwards. And I said, is it just me because I do this work, because I'm engaged with fathers, and it's really important to me that I have this type of I'd say it was a reaction to what I experienced. And she's like, no, Drew, like, I think you're right. And I think there's a lot of power in what you are sharing. And so I'm not going to share it now. We'll talk about it again. But to your point, I believe it maybe we are blessed to have this opportunity to bring a little bit more, shine a light on what's needed and the value of fathers, and how we can elevate fathers and Father's Day and bring attention to, the importance of the role of fathers, but also the support that fathers could benefit from.
Well, one of the people that are helping us is Dove Men Plus Care. And the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. So always kudos to Dove Men Plus Care. So I'm glad that reflection sort of segued nice into giving some props to Dove Men Plus Care and Edelman. Can't forget them either. So we got another new friend today.
Yeah, actually, today we're talking with Cory Jenks, and I'm excited for this conversation for a couple different reasons, but just off, I'll give you Cory's quick intro, and then I'll tell you why I'm more excited. So Cory is a comedian. He's a pharmacist. He's an author. He's a speaker. Oh, and yes, he's also a dad to 3 kids. I think 6 and under. That's hectic. So, I mean, just look at all those things there. One, the comedian aspect really intrigues me. What we were talking about was deep or a little bit heavy, but I think there's also value in the hilarity and the fun that could be part of this whole father journey. So that is interesting for me. Plus, I think Cory's philosophy that we were just chatting about before coming on, I think it offers a lot of value for anyone, but in particularly for fathers who maybe need some support. And so, Cory, honored to have you on the show. Looking forward to this conversation. Welcome.
Boom. Good to be here. Thanks so much.
I like that. Boom. I like that.
I'm here to hear about travel baseball and the deep tragedy of fathers not getting the recognition they need. So I'm here to shine a hilarious, well, I guess comedian's always subjective. If I make people laugh, then I'm a comedian. If I don't, I'm a failed comedian. So it's all good. I'm cool with either. But yeah, I'm here trying to amplify dads in a fun way. And I think there is a way to have that deep reflection and also wrap it in a tasty comedic candy coating that's easier to digest. But I hear both of those scenarios, the hectic summer, the selling of the house, the kids and activities, and then the also sad realization that Father's Day is not as celebrated as it could be. And then as a comedian, I look at all the dads in comedies, and it's Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, Tim Allen, the knuckle dragging fathers who are basically dragging their family down. So not always getting the love in the media and the comedies, but hey, I'm here to hopefully change that a little in my own little weird way, I guess.
I appreciate that. I'm going to say though, I'm not so sure Tim Allen was dragging the family down. He had some nuggets of wisdom. I watched that show Tool Time, and I was like, oh, that's good. That's good stuff.
Oh,
even if there was a little bit of jokes in it.
I know his tagline is "ho ho ho ho," so yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. But maybe that's a poor example of a dad. That's maybe something to aspire to. Your own show, or the last man standing owning his own store. Who knows? But
it's all
anyways,
good. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that. I appreciate giving us a little bit of a acknowledgement on how we bantered at the beginning. We love to know a little bit more about you, and typically on the show we start with a little bit of the background. So tell us a little bit more about life growing up for Cory before you became Cory Jenks, comedian, author, speaker, etc., etc.
Oh, I was telling jokes since I was a kid. No, I grew up. I currently live and grew up in Tucson, Arizona, in a house that's about a mile from the house I was born into. So, but I have this Gamecock hat on. So, spoiler alert: I went up to South Carolina for college and pharmacy school. But growing up in Tucson, it's honestly pretty awesome. I have 2 great parents, knock on wood, still around. Great father. They were both teachers. So, one of those things where we were not super monetarily rich, but I had 2 parents that were off every summer vacation, every winter vacation, that supported me in my failed athletic pursuits. I remember being one of the first groups of people playing that travel ball, and my poor dad was a college football player and had to watch me struggle and strike out and not throw strikes on the mound. But he supported me and loved me anyway. So I had great, really, and the thing is, as I get older, I can look back and nitpick on things that they did or didn't do. As a parent now, I realize I have way more resources than they did from a knowledge standpoint. The internet has equalized that ability to learn and be a parent. Financially, I'm a pharmacist. My wife's a nurse practitioner, so we have a little bit bigger shovels than those teachers that my parents were. So having the grace for any shortcomings when I was a kid, like on the spectrum of parents, I pretty much hit the lottery. So awesome there. Went to high school, again, failed athlete. So just my chemistry teacher asked what I wanted to do when I grow up. I said, I want to pitch for the Chicago Cubs. And she said, that is not an option for you. So how about pharmacy? You're pretty good at chemistry. So I chose pharmacy at 17 years old, went out there to pharmacy school in South Carolina, graduated 2011, missed home, came back. I've been practicing as a pharmacist since 2011. And then I started my improv comedy journey in 2013. And that is my life story in 78 seconds.
I have a question, and thank you for sharing. I have a conversation piece.
Yeah.
Both your parents were teachers.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience feeling more like a student than their son?
Fortunately, no.
Good.
I mean, in fairness, my dad was a PE teacher, so I'm sorry. That's a dig at PE teacher. He's a professor in the College of Education at the University of Arizona now, so he's Professor Dodgeball is what I call him. But no, I really didn't. I had my older sister was 6.5 years older than me, and I was honestly I came out of the womb pretty wired to just do what was asked of me, follow directions. I never was really in trouble. Super boring. Which is good as a parent. You kind of want a little bit of boring when it comes to that. My sister was decidedly less so. And so, honestly, a lot of their parental energy was focused on trying to keep her out of trouble. And I sort of just floated along, bopped along, did my thing. And really, I mean, I don't ever recall being grounded. I remember being home before every curfew. And there wasn't a lot of, they say, like, there wasn't a lot of, I mean, there's life lessons you have to teach your kids, but there was not a lot of like lecturing or things like that I ever felt.
Cool. Back to you, Drew.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that again. I'm curious. It sounds like the rule follower in you. And as I was reading your story and a little bit more about you, it's kind of like the path you went on as you kind of got into your career.
Mhm.
And so, you share a little bit about that on your website. And so can you talk about what happened, following using that rule follower path and what changed and why and how that's maybe even contributed to where you're at today?
Yeah, the rule follower left brain type A people, like we're accountants and we're pharmacists, man. It falls like we're a type. And I chose pharmacy because it was practical. I was not going to be one of those people that goes to college, gets a degree in who knows what, and doesn't have a career path. It was super practical. And I cannot complain at the stage in life I'm at. I have an amazing wife, 3 awesome kids. I live in a neighborhood full of other families that have kids around our age that we get along great. Wouldn't trade where I'm at in life for that. The downside to being sort of a rule following pharmacist is I got out of school and I had done all this work to get to this job. And I assumed that this job was going to make me happy. It was going to be the fulfillment I was seeking. And if anyone here listening is in healthcare, you kind of get out in there and realize healthcare, it kind of sucks sometimes, or a lot of the time. So following these rules, I got out and I would often struggle with patients that would have weird things to say, doctors that wouldn't do what I would expect. And the thing that really flipped the switch for me was finishing school and residency and having some time for hobbies and finally pursuing this comedic itch I'd had since high school and getting into an improv class and ended up teaching, coaching, performing. And along the way, I realized I got much more comfortable with that unknown aspect of healthcare and life, quite honestly. If this is a dad podcast, parenting is full of unknowns. You learn to really embrace the unexpected and turn everything into sort of a game once you get good at it. And I suddenly realized like my pharmacy job was better. It was more fun, but there was still something more there. And so I joke I've hit my teenage rebellion in my 30s. So now I teach improv to healthcare and other businesses and organizations. I'm more willing to sort of push back and be unconventional. That's sort of my angle. Like most pharmacists aren't comedians. Most pharmacists don't like getting on stage. Most pharmacists aren't writing books, or most pharmacists, like in my practice, I try to get people off their medicines and follow lifestyle advice. So pushing back against the man in big pharma here. But that switch was getting down that road of comedy and improvisation.
Mm. Thanks for that, Ed.
Yeah. Performing as a comedian, performing as a doctor, performing as a dad. Talk to me.
All of those scenarios, we have certain rules we have to follow. So you might not believe this, and my parents are always like, you're going to improv practice. It's all made up. What are you practicing? But there's certain rules we follow. If you learn nothing about parenting from me, you want to learn something about comedy, you'll learn something about parenting. I promise. We'll get there. But this 2 words, yes and, we agree and we build together. That is the basis of improv comedy. And I think the default in society is to say no. And as dads, we have to say no a lot of the time. Now, performing on stage, performing as a parent, performing in healthcare, there's rules. Being a parent, there's rules. But when we say yes, it doesn't always mean like a literal yes. It can mean, honestly, it just means listening, agreement to listening and building together. When someone comes to me to the pharmacy and if they have a napkin with a prescription for Vicodin, for 1 million Vicodin, and I say, yes, and here's your Vicodin, and I'll say, yes, and here's my license because I'm going to go to jail. But if someone's asking for that, they need to be heard. Being a pharmacist, being a patient, you want to be seen, heard, and understood. Kids, parents, spouses want to be seen, heard, and understood. And if I'm doing a good comedy scene with a partner, if I make sure they feel seen, heard, and understood, and the audience feels seen, heard, and understood, we're going to have a more successful scene. And I think as in healthcare, we're bad at it. In comedy, if you're good at it, you're good at it. And then dads, I fall short of that sometimes too. But I think as fathers and spouses, we often fall short in that, making our kids and our spouses feel seen, heard, and understood. So there's a thread that binds them all together. And I've just been fortunate enough to have thousands of hours of repetitions on a stage where the stakes are low, so that when I'm in my practice or when I'm with my kids and family and the stakes are higher, I've worked out, not all the kinks, but more of the kinks.
I want to build on that for a second. Can you give me a wonderful moment in your fatherhood journey that you felt seen, heard, and understood?
Almost every day that I wake up grouchy or tired from work or in a bad mood, it happened yesterday. Like I had a long, I work part-time as a pharmacist. That was a switch I did a couple of years ago to spend more time with my kids, to pursue some of these writing and speaking and comedy things as well. And so please yell at your headphones as I say I've complained about my 3-day work week. Oh, poor Cory. But it was a long 3 days at my job. And I was just in such a foul mood yesterday. And it sounds silly, but I asked my wife, can I go to Costco and just do our shopping this afternoon and get away? And she said, sure. And wandering, it was like Thursday afternoon at Costco, like the lowest time people are there. I got a good parking spot. The samples were plentiful. I was hitting my grocery list. We're thinking of switching wireless carriers. So when the guy solicits, hey, you want to talk about your wireless? I was like, sure, let's talk wireless. I got no kids with me. And so my wife really does a great job of making me feel seen, heard, and understood. When she knows what I need when I'm grouchy is usually a workout, a walk, and either some alone time or some time with some of the men and other dads that are in our neighborhood.
Drew?
Yeah.
I think Drew maybe. Okay, go.
No, I'm good. Thanks, Ed. So Cory, that was, I think, a great example. Thanks, Ed, for that question. I really loved what you're sharing there. What came to me as you were talking, the ability to do and have that support and feel seen, heard, and understood required something of you first, though. And it was that awareness. The awareness, and you asked for what as an example, can I go to Costco? So you knew what you needed and asked for it. Can you talk about the importance of awareness when it comes to improv, when it comes to fatherhood, and how those two are connected?
Yeah, it's all about living in the moment. So I think if we are in a state, so people assume that when you're an improv comedian, you have to be funny to be successful. And I'm living proof you do not need to be funny to be a successful improviser, because improv is all about living in the moment, listening and responding. So the awareness comes from being there. Instead of, people assume you sit on the side and you think of a funny joke. If you're thinking of a funny joke, there's dialogue happening you're going to miss. And when you come out with your funny joke, it's going to make no sense because that scene has already moved beyond where your head was at. Now, as a father, again, if you're in a state of either anxiety, depression, frustration, you are either thinking back to something you wish you had done differently, or you were thinking ahead to a time where you hope it will be better. And if you are willing, and it's not easy, it's not always fun, to sit in that moment, to have that self-reflection. And if you have the spouse who will remind you gently, or sometimes not so gently, that, hey, there's something going on, man. What's going on with you today? And to have the humility and that willingness to accept whatever that feedback is. And it usually comes in the form of me saying, you're right, honey. I know I'm being irrational. That's why I'm upset. You live in that moment. And so you can own it, and then you can find solutions. But if you're thinking ahead and you're ignoring the pain that's happening, you're not going to find that solution. And it's not perfect. Again, I'm speaking here as a quasi expert, as an author of 2 books, as a comedian and speaker, but none of us are perfect. But if you have that self-reflection and that awareness and living in the moment, you're going to be able to acknowledge, move on, and adjust your behavior in a much more effective way.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. And you mentioned the book, and we're going to get to that pretty soon. But let's transition though into you becoming a dad, and you've shared with us some insights, some wisdom, some, I think, practical things that, a dad who's heard this already could take and apply. Like, yeah, I can see how that would help me as a father. Well, let's talk about your fatherhood journey.
Mhm.
And were there any fears, challenges, things that, were struggles that came up in that early fatherhood phase for you?
I think the first one was this little baby's born. They put him in my arms. I remember it's so bad. Like I thought of the first thing I was going to say to him. I practiced it. I whispered into his ear. I can't even remember what I said. It was some allusion to like being better than me. Be like your great grandpa and your grandpas. Have their traits. And then he starts crying, and he immediately goes onto my wife's boob and stayed there for about a year. And so like you have this idea that you have this baby and the clouds part, the angels sing, the harps play, the unicorns are shooting rainbows out of their butt. Like, but the reality is you have this baby, and for me, I didn't really have a lot of interaction with babies before my son. So I'm learning everything on the fly. I don't really understand the nuances of childhood development as well as someone who's been around kids. And my wife has had other nieces and nephews that she was part of. So she's got that plus her like just instinctive motherly instinct. She has a baby in her arms. She's like, I know what to do. Good to go. Uh, so, so the hardest part for me was the struggle as a sort of a type A pharmacist was I want to do this. I want to do stuff for this baby. I want to love it. It's going to love me back. And the reality is that first year, like it's sort of like, you're cool, dad, but you can't feed me. And if you change my diaper, I don't know how to say thank you. And it's actually kind of those wipes are cold and I don't like it. So the challenge for me was like, what can I do? And what I write about in the book is I did everything else. So I'll say this as a bit of a brag, but my wife really hasn't cooked a dinner in 6 years. She hasn't taken the trash out in 6 years, except when I'm traveling. If I am traveling, I set a crock pot out so the dinner's ready when I'm gone. I do the chores around the house. She jokes that the laundry fairy takes care of the laundry because I do the laundry. So it was the struggle of I can't directly care for this kid in the way my wife can, but what can I do to support the family? And so in that sense, it's that again the humility and the acceptance. A lot of fatherhood is acceptance that yes and accepting reality. I can't do this, but I can help in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a really important point. I'm wondering, knowing that that's a pretty long time, just the 1 year aspect, but now saying, 6 years later, you're still doing these things, which is again fantastic. Speaks to, I think, something we could maybe on the show, Ed, we can talk more about but yeah, the value and importance of the partnership as of the parents. And so I guess my question is, has it ever got to the point where you start to say, well, hold on a second here, and you start to resent, or you get a little bit bitter, or you feel a little bit frustrated? Wait a minute, look at all that I'm doing. Let's say, your 2-year-old or 3-year-old is still always running to mom. You're like, well, when's dad going to get his? I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be honest and see if that ever comes up for you.
It does. And I think the cool thing is when I say this around other dads, they're like, oh, thank you. I thought I was the only monster that felt this way about my kid. And yeah, I write about it. It's like the mom for many, like I can't speak to all, but like for many, it's the mom show for the first year or two. And when I have those moments of resentment, I have to have, again, that self-awareness that developmentally, they were literally inside my wife for 9 months. They were literally attached to her. There is a level of attachment there that I will never be able to have. They've been dependent on her. She's softer and more nurturing. Like there's a difference between her and I. So if they're upset and crying and I'm just sort of like, shake it off. And she's like, here's a hug. Like that hug feels good. And my wife is actually, she does jujitsu and has a level of toughness. Actually, she's a nurse. So she deals with like more gross stuff than I can deal with. So she has that toughness and softness. So when I want to have those resentful moments, and I'll even have those with, if there's a sink of dirty dishes or there's like another dinner I'm making, I'm just exhausted. I just think, I did not have this baby inside of me. I did not have this kid inside of me. When it's midnight and they need someone, it's usually her dealing with it with the sleep. Okay, this is being irrational. Let it go, Cory. And as time has gone on, as the kids have gotten older, I realized like 3 to 4, as my boys, I have 2 boys and then my baby girl, as they've gotten older and more like sentient and coordinated, the dad role has increased. And my wife does a great job of reminding me of like, when they want to do something cool, they ask for you. When they want to show off, they ask for you. So the patience is hard, as long as you can. And I guess this is the value of these kinds of podcasts, is hearing other fathers say that so that you know what those expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really well said. And also, again, underlying in what you shared is the ability to work well with your
Mhm,
partner and have that awareness for yourself and a dose of healthy perspective.
mhm,
Recognizing that, hey, look what my partner's doing when it comes to all that she's carrying as well,
mhm,
and that you're mutually supportive of each other. And I think that's a very important aspect of it.
mhm.
That so I appreciate sharing that. It's
Sure.
good, Ed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
real quick,
Sorry,
Corey.
just to interject. Like improv comedy is a team sport. So that
Yeah.
has taught me that, and I played sports in high school. So having that value, that give and take, the energy sharing is a big part of being on stage. And knowing
Mhm.
that sometimes she will take the center stage, sometimes I will take the center stage. And that winning isn't feeding my ego. Winning is having kids that are healthy, successful, solid relationships. Like that's the win. And if you can put that aside, that need for like dad to be the winner here, it makes life. I mean, it's never easy with kids, but it makes it less hard.
Yeah, very well said. Ed.
Yeah, no problem. Got some conversation pieces for you. It sounds like you've touched on it a bit, but if you want to expand on it, how has your perspective on fatherhood changed since you started your fatherhood journey?
It has certainly grown with experience, like getting the reps, like with any activity, whether it's comedy, hitting a baseball, playing golf, the more I had the kids, the perspective of letting the stuff that doesn't matter go has gotten much more easy for me. I would say that managing the appropriate developmental expectations has gotten easier for me. And my poor oldest kid is going to probably resent me for it someday. But sorry, kid, we learned on the first one. And with my baby girl, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, why would she be able to do that? Or even my middle one who's just turned 4, like, oh yeah, that wouldn't be an ask of a 4-year-old. But the oldest one, where I say we, me, had higher expectations. So I think the perspective of letting go of the small stuff that doesn't matter. And then something I write about in the book is you pick a couple hills to die on as a parent. And it could be sleep, it could be the diet you feed them, it could be the activities, but you can't use up all your parent capital and every little thing. And this is something that my wife is very good at gently and sometimes forcibly reminding me of, like, why does that matter? Why does that matter, Cory? And I'm like, because it matters to me right now, and they're not listening. And then she says, "What?" And I'm like, "I'm being irrational." So that ability to let go what does not matter.
Yeah.
Another thing that you shared during our conversation so far about the community and support systems. You want to share a little about that, because not every father has that. And you mentioned like you're in a neighborhood that has a bunch of fathers, and it's like you have a good relationship with them. Can you just share a bit about that?
Yeah. So I think this goes to the humility of knowing what I'm good at and what I'm not. So there could be emotional support, there could be the discussion support, but to me, it's also like the tangible physical support. And what I talk about in my book is kind of building your team and building your tribe as you have kids. And for me, that means I'm not good at fixing things, but I'm friends with 2 people that are like they're handymen. So when something breaks, I call them, and when they need advice on their kid's medication, they can call me. So acknowledging like what you can bring to the table. So it's not just like ask, being willing to give and help. But you say that a lot of men don't have that. And I think it takes an effort to find that. And so for some, it could be this podcast is a place to go to hear other stories of dad's struggles, triumphs, and challenges, to know you're not alone. Sometimes knowing you're not alone helps. But I think there needs to be some sort of active work on finding the other people in your world that can help you with the broken sink, the rant on the toddler meltdown, the like my best friend played professional baseball and is a firefighter. I'm a pharmacist. My kids think baseball and firefighting is way cooler. So just having some cool people around you to say, like, if you don't want to play catch, Uncle TJ will play catch with you. Oh yeah, he played baseball. Like, it's cool. He's a firefighter. Oh, that's cool. Like, that's fine. I don't care. Like, my father-in-law was a fighter pilot. That's way cooler than being a pharmacist, in my opinion. So just tapping into that network you already have and realizing there's a lot of cool resources you could probably lean on that you didn't even think of.
Are you a dad who feels like you're juggling a million things at once? Balancing work, family, and personal goals can be overwhelming. But what if there was a solution? That's why we created our new fatherhood community called Dad Mentor. For over 20 years, Dad Central has built practical tools to help dads. We understand the challenges you face and provide the support you need to thrive. The biggest complaint we hear from dads is there's no dedicated support for their specific needs, but not anymore. Our new community, called Dad Mentor, is here to transform your fatherhood experience. Imagine feeling in control, staying calm and patient when your children misbehave. Picture yourself connected to your children, guiding them with confidence and watching them succeed. When you join Dad Mentor, you'll have access to a community of like-minded dads committed to their dad journey, just like you. You'll also get the Dad's Roadmap. This is a step-by-step plan to help you go from unsure to unstoppable as a dad. Monthly masterclasses and Q&A sessions. You'll get answers and know exactly what to do straight from experts. Monthly group meetups that connect dads over common topics. A dad's resource library. Curated webinars, podcasts, or guides built by Dad Central to help you grow as a parent. And finally, you'll also get exclusive members-only offers and events. Now, many dads do try to do this fatherhood thing alone, only to find themselves trapped in frustration and strained relationships. Then they may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, or other distractions, leaving their family and their own well-being at risk. We don't want you to reach that point of regret. Take steps to invest in you and your family today. Join Dad Mentor and go from stressed, tired, and overwhelmed to confident, calm, and connected. Join us today by going to dadcentral.ca/dads.
I want to, and I know we don't got lots of time left, but I know Drew and I want to talk about your book.
Yeah.
You go, I guess I am a dad now. How did you come up with that title?
My neighbor, one of the people in my network, I was telling him about this book. I was like, I'm really struggling with the title. And I was explaining that moment when that give you that baby and you're like, what? And he said, no, it's like, I guess I'm a dad now. Like, oh, that's the title. And then the sort of subtitle, A Humorous Handbook for Newish Dads Who Don't Want to Suck. So it's giving that disclaimer that if you have a teenager and you're thinking you're getting teen advice from me, it's probably not going to be the case. And then who don't want to suck. So I think that there's, at this stage in society, you can go on Instagram and find the super dads that are doing it all. They're on their yachts, they're entrepreneurs, they're living their life, they're showing off their kids, doing all these crazy things. And that can feel super unattainable. And I know, like for me at the end of the day yesterday, or beginning of the day when I was in a bad mood, sometimes that perfect ideal is just, it's so unattainable, you can get that sort of learned helplessness and don't even want to try. But what I'm saying is, if you could just suck a little less every day, you're on the right path. And sometimes if your kid's been up all night, not sleeping, they throw up all over you, they have a bloody nose, you had a long day at work, sometimes they're not getting the best, but if they can at least not get the suckiest version of you, you're coming out ahead of what it could be.
Drew, I can go on, but I can pass it back to you.
Yeah, go one more time.
Okay, no problem.
I'll just see what comes up.
Okay, so let me ask then, how do you balance doctor, personal life, comedian, father? What's the secret sauce? Unless you're selling a prescription for it, by the way. You know, we can sell it on the site if you want.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, then I would be super rich and not have to be any of them. Like I could be one of those things. No, my joke answer is I just ignore my kids. It's fine. No, I don't do that. So the secret I've found is there's a couple, and I won't even call them secrets or hacks. One is just intentionality. So my wife and I, boy, it's real hard these days. Like our joke is at the end of the day, we get in bed and say good morning because like the day starts and you're just off to the races. But picking times to get together and sort of plan out what do we want life to look like. And this could be vacations, jobs, finances, how we want to spend our time. Because I think getting on that teamwork, the importance of teamwork and working together, if we're rowing in the same direction, it sure makes this hard job a lot easier. How do I balance it all? I think working on, if you already have kids, changing habits is hard. Changing habits is hard enough on its own. But what I have found is it's less about time management and more for me about energy management. So I know that I'm at my most creative and energetic early in the morning. And if I want any time to myself, and I found like, I know I need some quiet time to myself. That's with some energy that's going to come early in the morning. If your kid's schedule is such where they get up at 4 and they go to bed at 6 p.m., then you're going to have to become a night person. But I manage my energy. So I get up, I get my work. The most important thing for me is my physical fitness, taking care of my kids. So I get up in the morning, first thing in the morning is a workout. My wife knows if I don't walk or do something physical, then I'm grumpy. So she will play defense on the kids if they get up to give me that time. And then from there, it's knowing the days that I work, I'm not going to do a lot of writing creatively because I just don't have that energy at the end of the day of working. And that means that every little bit of energy I have is going to be going into the kids. And it's, for a guy who does improv and saying yes and, it's learning to say no to stuff that's going to suck my time away. So for me, don't ask me what I'm watching on Netflix. Like my wife and I, we get maybe like 30 minutes a week to watch something together between like our kids' sleep schedules with the baby at this point. So it's being intentional. It's understanding where my best creative energies are, not trying to fight against it. And then I go to bed early. So I go to bed early, get up early, and so I can give myself that time in the mornings. That's the secret of juggling, and it's not sold in prescription form. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know.
a letdown. Drew, I'm done with this guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Listen.
It's over.
Yeah, you sound like my kids. I'm disappointed in you.
Whoa. Okay, now.
Oh, they're starting to get attitudes. So, it's because I didn't give them exactly what they wanted. That's not a healthy relationship where a dad gives their kid everything they want, their popsicles and candy and things. Oh, come on. They're disappointed because I didn't give in to their every whim. It doesn't sound. It's not as bad as it sounds.
No, it's not as bad as it sounds. That's the reality of the parents who don't suck.
Exactly.
Like they don't do that.
Yeah. Someday, the idea. Someday you'll thank me. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they will, for sure. In what you just shared, which I think was really valuable and important, so I appreciate that, is a crucial skill. And for me, I'm gonna say to me, adaptability, which goes along with this improv mentality, seems to be the core piece that allows you to do what you just described. Can you talk about how you've seen adaptability / improv? Like, I don't want to. Anyways, bottom line is, can you just talk about the skill of adaptability and how you feel that helps your ability to juggle? Yeah. And how the other part of how would you advise somebody to help improve their adaptability as a
adaptability? Parent? I think the first piece of adaptability, there's a couple of things that come to mind. Adaptability first is letting go of what is beyond your control. Because I think a lot of the pain from things coming up and not being able to adapt is wishing things were different. I see this a lot with pharmacists when the medical chart isn't working, the technician calls out, boy, I wish Betty was here today so we would have a full staff. Well, we don't. So acceptance, yes, and agreeing to the reality where we are. The other pieces of adaptability it goes along with that is controlling what you can control and getting as good at the skills that you can control that is. So for me, it's setting myself up for as much success as possible and anticipating that the stuff's going to come up. So that to me is nutrition, exercise, being in shape, as well rested as I can. Avoiding another piece of that is avoiding the self-inflicted wounds. So for us, it's we make the kids lunch, and we'll get to where they're making their own lunches, but we make them the night before. You know why? Because when you get up in the morning, something's going to happen, and if you're trying to do everything in that short period of time, anticipate it's going to take longer than it's going to take. Like that's a big part of the adaptability. Is if you're forcing yourself to be rushed, that's a problem. If you give yourself time and then still have to be rushed with that buffer, you're less stressed. And then, gosh, how can you work on it? It's that willingness to let go of control. I've read about this idea of radical acceptance of this is what is, and we shall work with it. And then another part of it is like just not trying to do too much. Because I see, like, for example, I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and you see the families that are like, at 9 o'clock, we're going here. At 9:03, we're going here. At 10, and you're like, yo, you got little kids. You get like 1 to 2 things that you're going to be able to get done in a day. And that's on vacation or in real life. That's what I write about is that acceptance of your time shrunk, limit what you're trying to do, simplify as much as you can, and thus you'll have more mental space to adapt.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
As we kind of wind down, one maybe question that I'll throw out is looking back on your fatherhood journey, and actually even looking back on the book, which is how many years ago was the book written?
So I guess my fatherhood book came out on Mother's Day of 2024, so it's fresh. It's about
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
my
thought
improv
that.
book came out in 2022. It's called Permission to Care.
Oh,
So
okay,
I do have a 2-year-old book.
gotcha,
I have a toddler book and a newborn
gotcha.
book.
Okay, well, so it's very fresh, but
Yeah.
you've written it. Is there anything that you've learned as a father since writing the book that you'd say, man, maybe I could have included that in it?
Yeah, it's interesting in that in the last year, I think the piece of advice I wish I would have put in this book that just I've gleaned in the last year since I submitted it to the editor is if you are thinking of becoming a father or like you're not thinking about it, it's happening, is try to find friends with little kids and spend some time around them so that you can learn what kids are like so that when kids go crazy on you, you know, like that's just what a baby does. That's just what a 1-year-old does. That's just what a 2-year-old does. Because the biggest dissatisfier for myself and probably the biggest point of contention that I've had, and as I've looked back with my poor first kid, as I've learned on him and done better with the second and third, which we're done, by the way. We're good with like just a little bit of zone defense coverage, is I just expected too much of him at too early an age. And boy, do I feel bad about some of like the frustrations I showed towards him. But if I had had a little bit more time with other kids and friends, family, whatever, and really paid attention to their age, their activities, the sort of flow of kids, toddlerhood babies, I would not have been as like there's something wrong with my kid versus like, oh, he's 2. That's what they do. They throw tantrums. They don't nap, and there's no amount of reasoning that will fix them. So, getting some of those, if anything, mental reps being around it would have been something I would have put in the book.
Great, thanks. Ed?
Yeah, I know time is winding down. I had a few conversations pieces, but I'm going to just get this one in. How do you see the role of fathers evolving in today's society? And what advice do you have for fathers adapting to these changes?
I feel like there's more asked of dads than ever before, fair or not. I think fair, because in the past it was you earn the money, you're the breadwinner, the wife raises the kids. That's sort of the traditional role I think of, the 1950s, 60s. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but there was this level of emotional distance and someone else is raising my kid. And now I think the role is you need to be there as another co-parent to help raise that kid and be there for them emotionally instead of just like popping in after work, yelling at them. Cause like, I mean, if they've been home with the mom all day and they're like off the walls and you're like, hey, why aren't you behaving? It's like, you spend 8 hours with this kid and tell me what you need to do at the end of the day. So I think there's a lot more emotional expectations and support for your kids and your spouse, which is good. I think that we kind of ignored that for a long time. So there's that. I think as the breadwinner, the world of employment is changing. So looking at those multiple income streams, as if you are the primary breadwinner for your family, understanding that the expectation you work 40 years for a company, you get a pension and you retire is probably not reasonable. So that in itself is adaptability. And how can dads adapt to it? Well, you learn. You get around if you have dads in your network that you're like, they're killing it. They're so good with their kids. Seek them out, talk to them. If short of that, this is a great start. This podcast is wonderful. These resources that are available, great. On the flip side of that, ignore the ones who say they know it all because they're lying. In this book, when I recorded the audiobook, my brother-in-law has a studio. It's like, this book, you sort of disparage yourself a lot. I don't know if I would want that. I want from an expert. I'm like, if an expert saying they have all the answers, they're full of it. These are my missteps. So along those lines, as we're adapting to these new roles, having the grace with yourself to know that you're learning and you're doing the best you can, and admit that to your wife and your kids. Like, hey, I tried this, or I got upset with you. That was wrong. I'm sorry. Instead of saying like, you deserved it. Like they didn't. They probably didn't. Like sometimes my kids maybe deserve a little bit. There's a lot of fighting between the brothers, but for the most part, having that acceptance and humility to know that you're learning and growing too. And I think that hopefully your kids will see that and be like, okay, he doesn't know it all, but he admits it instead of being this sort of figurehead know-it-all.
I just want to get one last thing in.
Yeah.
Share with our audience, especially dads, fathers, and male caregivers, being able to laugh along the fatherhood journey.
This is an absurd thing we choose to do. Like before you have kids, you have time, you have more money, you have all this freedom that it's like, it's Tuesday, let's go to a movie. Cool. What do we care? And then you just give all that up for the dice roll that is having toys and tools and things that you try to give new parents to overwhelm them, when in reality you need like a diaper, you need diapers, onesies, and a car seat and a crib. Like you're good to go. But we need the wiper warmer. We got to have this. Oh, if they have cold wipes, they're going to be scarred for life. Yeah, like just like the cavemen were scarred for life. They were fine. So laughing at like the crazy, and if you come across a vice that seems like kind of crazy, like laugh at it to highlight it. Because if you get angry, it's going to be a long journey. And I've gotten angry and I've gotten frustrated. I'd be lying if I didn't. But on the whole, if you can zoom out and realize if I have home, food, shelter, support, medical care, I'm doing better than like 99% of humanity ever. So we're pretty good. Let's laugh at this and move on.
Good stuff, Drew.
I almost feel like that's a great place to end, but we finish off the show with asking these two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, what question should dads be asking themselves about, what we've explored today? And then the follow-up to that is, well, what's one action every dad can take to apply, the wisdom from today to their fatherhood journey?
Yeah. I think the question you should ask is, how am I doing? And this could be to yourself, to your spouse, to your kids, because that self-reflection is important. Sometimes you don't see, like the fish don't see the water they swim in. And sometimes you think you could be doing great. And in reality, there's your kids are like, dad's on edge, or your wife's like, what's wrong with you? You need to go to Costco. So that's the question. It's simple. Like, how am I doing? And then the action you can take is, one action step you could take today, I would say, is do me a favor. And the next time your kid is doing something that's like not exactly what you want, but it's not dangerous or bad, just say yes and. Like let it go. Let go of a little thing. And I shared this example before we started. We were on vacation. My kid wanted to go up the down escalator. And the disciplinary dad, rule follower, pharmacist brain was like, you can't do that. It's the down escalator. Society's gonna fall apart if we don't follow these rules. But the other part of me was like, who cares? It's a small airport. There's nobody here. He wants to get his energy out. Go have fun. And the next time I ask you to not do something, he won't be like, Dad says no to everything. And be like, oh, he let me do that fun thing. This must be the thing I actually have to like not do. So let a little thing go. And that's advice. That's an action step I'm going to try to take myself, because I sometimes fall short on that too. So being willing to admit that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Cory. Let people
fun.
know. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Great conversation. You said some really great stuff. So I hope dads who are, if you're listening, you can take this stuff to heart and begin applying it wherever you need it. Tell people where they can find out more about you and maybe get copies of your book.
Sure. So if you go to CoryJenks.com, and it's CoryJenks, and Cory, my parents were cheap. They didn't buy the bell. There's no E in Cory. So go there. If you go to Amazon, you can find, I guess I'm a dad now, Humorous Handbook for Newish Dads Who Don't Want to Suck. And you get there from my website. And it's my pitch to you is, it's fun, it's funny, it's useful. You'll want to pick it up, go back to it, remember it. And it's not a heavy read, but it's a read that I think is going to help dads. And when we help dads, we help society be better and raise better kids, and everyone wins. So that's my pitch. So thanks so much for letting me come on your platform and share my little journey and story and weird, quirky, funny stuff.
Well, thank you, Cory. Really appreciate it. It's been great. I've been really enjoyed the conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Cory. We want to say thank you for taking the most important thing you have, your time to share with the Dad Central Show family. And we appreciate you 150%. If there's anything we can do to help you along the journey, we're locked. So
Right.
let's make it happen. So
Awesome.
want to say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and
Mhm.
remember to give yourself grace. And we'll look forward to having you back on the show and continuing the journey with you. So take care, be well, and keep the faith.
Thanks so much.
All right, Drew, talk to us.
Yes, and Cory was gave so much good stuff. One of the things that I want to touch on though is this idea of understanding child development and how helpful that is to reset our own expectations that can lead to some frustrations, and then this idea of getting around other dads or families when you're becoming a new father. That's really great advice. And I actually had the same experience that Cory had, and so it really speaks to me. Knowing I'm however many 12 years now into my own fatherhood journey, that if I had done those things, and I've learned those as well, that it would have made a difference in those early frustrations and struggles. So I just want to give a shout out to Cory for acknowledging those two key areas, and I also want to talk about how we help. So we've got something called the clues and cues child development cards at Dad Central that help from 2 months to age 6 what to expect for child development. They're simple, like here's what's going on, and here's how dad you can meet your child where they're at in terms of 3, 4, 5, 6 very practical pieces. So dadcentral.ca, you can find that. And then the other thing we have is our new dad manual. And this is dads looking back on their experience and giving practical, easy to use advice. So those are two resources that I think if you are about to become a dad or a newish dad, those two pieces can really help you. And it really stood out to me. So that's my yes. And over to you, Ed.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I think you got to laugh when you're a dad. Because I'll tell you, like you said, if you don't find the laughter in it, and it goes also too, your kids are mirroring you. So if they see you laugh, it's going to enhance them in regards to laughter. So as I say, if you're not laughing at yourself, someone's laughing at you. So I'll leave it at that. As always, the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man. And because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. As always, we want you to touch base with us. Guest suggestions, feedback, whatever. Email us at podcast@dadcentral.ca. Also, if you want to listen or watch replays of our epic conversations with dads, fatherhood experts, etc., hey, check us out, dadcentral.ca/podcast. And finally, as Drew mentioned, we have a lot of free resources. He mentioned some of them. Go to our website, dadcentral.ca. So as always, I want to say thank you for giving the most valuable thing you have, time, to us. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace, and we'll see you soon.